Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore. You may recognize these sentences from one of the most famous poems in world history, The Raven, written by the American writer Edgar Allen Poe and first published in 1845. And the illustrations of this poem in this video were made by one of the best illustrators in history, the 19th century French artist Gustave Doré. It was actually the last illustration project that he did in his life, and he would die around the time of the first publication of the illustrated book. Most of you come here to learn more about art, and if you're not so familiar with poetry, The Raven is an excellent starting point to learn more. It's relatively short with 1084 words. It rhymes, it is written in a pleasing rhythm, meaning that one could read the sentences with a certain musicality. And there's much more to discover about a good poem, like the metaphors, literary devices, and interesting classical and folk references. The poem is about a man referred to as a student who is lamenting the loss of his love, named Lenore. The overall theme is a tension between his desire to forget the loss of his Lenore and the desire to remember her loss. It is a midnight in December, and our young scholar sits at his home, going through some so-called forgotten lore, some obscure books he owns, possibly about black magic. And then he suddenly hears someone tapping at his door. I will next read the first 6 stanzas of the poem, and be aware that there are some magnificent readings of this poem that you can find on YouTube. The poem is made up of 18 stanzas, which are similar to a paragraph in non-poetry writing, and each stanza contains 6 lines. Notice that when reading the poem, I will read it in a certain rhythm, and we will get to the specific style of the poem a bit later. This is how the poem starts. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore. While I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. Only this and nothing more. Distinctly I remember, it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished tomorrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels named Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken satin certain, rustling of each purple curtain, thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now to still the beating of my heart I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating, entrance at my chamber door. Some late visitor entreating, entrance at my chamber door. This it is, and nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore. But the fact is, I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more." Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the darkness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore." This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, "Lenore." Merely this, and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a tapping, somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more." So the man is lamenting Lenore, whom we will never see again, when around midnight there seems to be a visitor. As we will hear soon, it's not a person, but a raven, who will only be able to say one word, which is the word nevermore. Open here I flung the shutter, when with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mien of lord or lady, perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, though, I said, art sure no craven, ghastly, grim, and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore, tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Notice the little interesting elements of this poem, like the alliterations such as flirt and flutter, shorn and shaven, and ghastly grim. The great thing about this poem is that it was originally written in English and that every element of this poem is intentional by Edgar Allan Poe. Much I marvelled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast above the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such name as nevermore. But the raven sitting lonely on that placid bust spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing further than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, other friends have flown before. On the morrow will she leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said, nevermore. Now is a good moment to look at the structure of each line of the poem. Most lines are written in the so-called trochaic octameter, which means there are 8 feet per line, where each foot consists of 2 syllables. Every 2 syllables are written in a way that they can be pronounced in a similar way. In this case, the first syllable of a line is an unstressed syllable, while the second syllable is stressed. A stressed syllable is typically pronounced longer, louder, and with a bit higher pitched voice, while the unstressed syllable is shorter, quieter, and lower. So looking at the first line of the poem, you get the following, obviously a bit exaggerated for illustrative purposes. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary. And when pronounced a bit more fluently, you get like a very pleasing cadence, helping narrators to put the emphasis on the right words and syllables. Let's continue with the 11th stanza of the poem. Startled at the stillness broken, by reply so aptly spoken, doubtless, said I, what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore, of never, nevermore. But the raven still beguiling all my sad soul into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then, upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy thinking, what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim ungainly gaunt and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking nevermore. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing, to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burnt into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining, on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er. But whose velvet violet lining, with the lamplight gloating o'er, she shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim whose foot false tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretched, I cried, thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he has sent thee, respite, respite and nepent from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepent, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. At this point, the tension of the poem is increasing. Whereas the student first thought that the raven was maybe there to help, he now realizes that this is not the case and he gets angry with the raven. But the raven is not impressed and just keeps muttering his one single word, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still if bird or devil, whether tempter sent or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within the distant Eden, it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels named Lenore, clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels named Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked upstarting, get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul had spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken, quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting, on the pallid bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him, streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted, nevermore. It's a pretty depressing ending of the poem, as in the final stanzas, the narrator has descended into despair, realizing that the raven's presence is a permanent reminder of his sorrow and that he will never escape his grief. There is so much more to tell about this poem, but I will leave it here. My best recommendation is to read the poem for yourself to notice some of the wonderful details. Even if you're quite familiar with it, there's always something new to discover. Well, I hope you enjoyed the discussion of this poem and the illustrations by Gustave Doré, who has done, in my opinion, a magnificent job in capturing the mood of the poem. I know that this was a somewhat different video than usual, and I'm curious to hear what you thought of it. Let me know through my socials or in the comment section down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more of my future art videos. Thanks for watching.